It is Juan and Jonathan for PedalsAndEffects.com Meatbox Challenge. It's not really a challenge. We're here to just show you that we've matched what the settings that we both use, right? Fully pegged settings. We just crank it all the way up on the original Meatbox Subharmonic pedal. And this is the reissue. And this is how we found to match it. We ran through a bunch of times through my rig and do the recording mic that we're using, the Reissue mic, and we matched it, and we feel like we're pretty exact on it. So this new one gets this, and then this new one gets gnarlier because it has a lot more output. I think we have a little bit room left on the low, and I think we have a little bit left on the octave.
And the sub too. I think we
shoot,
pulled back on all of them.
Okay, it distorts a little bit more from what I can hear, even when we turn the volume down as low, so you can still hear it kind of distorting. But this pedal is, as anybody who knows either Jonathan or me, it is the PA crusher. And so it's a subharmonic synthesizer pedal, and let's just let you first hear the difference between these two. Okay, now here is the reissue. Okay, so the whole time he's playing, my hat's going like this, vibrating on my head, because that's what the subharmonic does. There's going to be differences, obviously, because we're not looping a bass. I guess we could also loop a bass line. Maybe we'll do that with my fretless. And so it'll be the same exact everything going into the pedal. So, but there's going to be subtle differences because these pedals, I believe they're sensitive to your touch. So the harder you play, I think the more distorted, the low end kind of drops out, it kind of compresses. And then the softer you play, a lot of times it's just so even and giant. And so I learned that watching you play. The first time I ever saw you play, I was just like, oh, when he goes to that, I saw your touch literally lighten up, but your sound blew up.
Right.
Again, this is the original Meatbox, and what I can tell you about what we know about this pedal from years of asking a million questions. So Digitech back in the day, or I'm sorry, not Digitech, DOD, had a designer named Jason Lamb, and he is the guy who got this idea from a record producer, mixer, engineer, Joe Barresi. And Joe Barresi got inspired, the idea basically came from the DBX boombox is the original, and then there's the DBX 120, which is a rack mount, and these are all subharmonic synthesizers. The first time I ever heard about a subharmonic synthesizer was Mario C., who produced Beastie Boys, a bunch of other groups, Jack Johnson. I asked him, how can I make my bass, this was back in the early 90s, and I go, how can I make my bass sound like an 808? And he goes, you need a boombox. And he showed me, and it had wood panels, RCA outs, and I would connect it to my SVT rig, and I blew speakers up constantly. It was just too massive. And so I said, nah, screw that. And then cut to Tim, Rage Against the Machine. I had showed him my boombox, and he dug it, but he was smart enough to go, I'll let our sound man check it out. And so I would go see Rage shows, and the sound man would kick it in whenever Tim would go into distortion or big parts, and it would just rattle the PA. And this is, again, the DBX boombox, and I think eventually they went to the 120, which is the rack mount version. And then cut to Jason Lamb meeting Joe Barresi and going, what would you like to see us make in a pedal? And he goes, DBX 120. So this is what ends up coming out of it. It's a DBX 120 in a box, DBX boombox in a box. Cut to my history with it. Mars Volta's on tour with Hella, Jonathan's in Hella, and he hits these bass notes, and I go, oh, he's using a boombox. So I go over to the sound man, or wherever the sound console is out in the audience at the arena we're playing, and I go, oh, are you using a DBX 120 or a boombox? And he didn't know what I was talking about. And I go, oh, he might have it on stage. And so when after they played, the very first time they played, after the first time I went right up to Jonathan, I go, are you using a boom, or how are you getting that boom box or some harmonic sound or whatever? And he goes, it's the Meatbox. And I had never heard of it. I'm like, what? And then he gave me one. And I remember watching him every night, and he would just crush the PA, like whenever the band would get heavy, usually, right?
Yeah.
It would be like, ga, 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 and Jonathan would kick it, and that PA would just go bananas. So then I got one, and then next thing you know, Jonathan would tell me, oh yeah, I get them for like 40, 60 bucks. And then, I don't know, we'd seen them on eBay for $300-400 at times, because they don't make these chips. They're a Samsung chip. So supposedly there's only 3,000 left. They found dead stock of 3,000 of those chips. So there's only going to be 3,000 of these made. So if you want this pedal, you got to go get one now, because once the 3,000 one is sold, that's it. But anyway, let's talk about the benefits of the new one as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, smaller.
Smaller. Probably a better switch.
Yes. True bypass. This is not.
True bypass. Has more gain. Has more of everything, it sounds like.
And it's lighter. It does have a dry out. This is a TRS stereo to 2 mono, and you can run one of them to this. Obviously, you can run the wet to the PA and the dry to your rig, so you don't blow your rig up. I don't ever use it that way. I haven't. This Ampeg right here is bulletproof, so I haven't blown it up.
See, I've blown up tons of speakers with that.
And Broken Bells, how did you use it? Did you send it to
straight?
PA?
No, straight through the cabinet, and I blew speakers all the time.
So you'd never sent it to
I
PA?
melted speakers.
Oh, when they're locked.
Yeah.
You can't push them anywhere. Yeah. You hear all this electronic music, and they have such massive low end. Then you hear bands going after it, and the band sounds this big because those dudes' range is like this.
Right.
So I would just come on immediately when Mars Volta would hit stage, because we'd always, a lot of times we just make noise in the beginning to just get our sound up. And I would just go straight to this to just hit the low end to just let people know we're coming at you this big, as opposed to like all the rock bands coming in like this after electronic or hip hop artists. And it would just give us that kind of big sub low end. So this, electronic guys use this on 808s, bass drums, synth dudes use this. A lot of people use this. It's not just basses. This is going to be an ongoing series, because this is something we're obsessed with. We play bass, but we love low end, and we love sub-harmonic low end. And so I intend to do an interview with Jason Lamb, Joe Barresi, Mario Caldato Jr., who else are we going to interview?
Greg Anderson.
Right.
From Sun.
There's a lot of guys who now use it, but I think originally, like, the first person band I ever heard use it was the Beastie Boys, and Mario was using the wood grain boombox on them with the RCA outs. And then DBX started making it in a rack form, like I said, the 120. And I still think, like, actually, every engineer that I've talked to said that the 120 still sounds better than any of the pedal forms. It's just better,
smoother and tracks better and whatever. Right?
So this is it. This is it. You guys heard it. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to put the fretless bass, and I'm going to loop it through a looper pedal, so it'll be literally the same thing going in here, and you guys can see what you think. So what we are going to try to do, we're going to show, a lot of guys ask, what's it sound like on the low E? Okay, so obviously the old one for us a lot of times is like, it just starts, the tracking gets tweaky, and it can't really hang with the low E. But we're finding that the new one actually can hang, I think. Well, better.
It hangs a lot better, yeah.
Yeah, so here's the new one. And now.
OG.
It's still really close, but this one holds it a little bit better. So really, for all intents and purposes, I believe that they're identical, and you should be able to dial in the identical sound. And this is just worth it. It's just
That one goes further.
it goes further. It's quieter. It's normal plug now, modern day plug, and obviously the stereo out thing is like, yes, of course. One guy made a comment like, yeah, like all of us carry around the TRS plugs. Good point, but you know what, man? Like if you're that dude who's gonna sell into the front of house, you're that dude who runs around with a ton of weird cables and weird things. We're just gonna use the direct out no matter what.
Yeah, probably.
All right, that's the Meatbox, and thank you for sitting through our long video.